When you think of Montgomery, Alabama, and the Civil Rights era, who do you think of? Rosa Parks and the bus boycott? That would be my first guess. However, after reading Claudette Colvin, Toys Towards Justice by Philip Hoos, my perception and knowledge of Montgomery, Alabama during the Civil Rights era has changed, and yours will too after you read this magnificent book. Claudette Colvin, Toys Towards Justice is a biography that will open your eyes to the reality of the Civil Rights era, which really started to heat up in the 1950s and 60s, especially in Alabama. And this text is based on many viewpoints from important African Americans that lived through it all. As I was reading Claudette Colvin, Toys Towards Justice, I was imagining how wonderful it would have been to read this text when I was in high school. The author gives the reader background information about Alabama during the 1940s and 50s and Jim Crow. Philip Hoos continues to tell the story of Claudette through her real-life recollections, but it's also mixed with informational text. This book has wonderful photographs, quotations, and information. And as I started to get into the book, the author made me get to know Claudette, and that made me want to keep reading in order to find out her role and how she was connected to the Montgomery bus boycotts. The author starts this text with Claudette speaking about when she first encountered segregation. Claudette was 4 years old when she first noticed segregation between blacks and whites. Everywhere she looked, there were reminders of segregations. Drinking fountains were segregated, movie theaters, schools, restaurants, sports teams, pools, and buses. In 1955, when Claudette was 15 years old, she attended Booker T. Washington High School. Claudette was a very smart girl and wanted to be popular with her peers. But in order for her to be popular, she needed to straighten her hair, and she needed to appear to have lighter skin, that of a white person. She thought that this was an injustice for black girls. There was a lot of injustice going on around her, and she was getting absolutely sick of it. So Claudette started to focus her attention on the injustices that blacks faced every day. One major injustice that Claudette faced every day was on the public buses. Blacks were expected to get in on front of the bus, pay their fee, and sit in on the back of the bus because the first 4 rows were saved for whites. So on March 2nd, 1955, much earlier before Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin sparked the most important social movement in history. She didn't give up her bus seat to a white passenger on this day. She was arrested and taken to jail, and this act paved the way for Rosa Parks. Word spread fast throughout the community about Claudette's courage and bravery. However, some of her peers thought that what she did was bad because it would make it harder for blacks. Fred Gray was a lawyer who helped Claudette. Fred Gray called upon black leaders to meet on behalf of Claudette, and one of them was actually Dr. Martin Luther King. Claudette Colvin's act of bravery and courage was actually Dr. King's first political debut. Now, this is where the book gets interesting. Dr. King, the NAACP, Rosa Parks, and Claudette Colvin's paths start crossing and intermingling. Bus boycotts start taking place, and history is forever changed. I know you will want to know how history is forever changed, so you will have to check out Claudette Colvin, Toys Towards Justice to find out. Enjoy and happy reading.